Oh, there. One may not take wood from a sukkah, or only from that which is not close to it. One may bring wood from the field, from that which is gathered together, and from the karpaf, even if that which is scattered. What is a karpaf? One, whatever is close to the city, so says Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi says, as such as one must enter with a key, and even with the Sabbath to come. One may not chop wood from beams or from a beam which was broken on Yom Tov, but one may not chop with an axe or a saw or a sickle, but only with a chopper. A house which is full of produce and sealed and burst open, one may take from the breach. Bimei says he may even make a breach at the outset and take. One may not hollow out a lamp because one makes a vessel, and one may not make charcoal on Yom Tov, and one may not cut a wick into two. Rabbi Yehuda says one may cut it with a flame into two lights.
Okay. Hey, Ein Shovrin es hacheres. Now, why would you break this potsherd? Um,
Mhm.
and the follow-up is ואין חוסכין es haniar litzlos bo meliach. So, what's the reason why they did this? One of the one of the recipes that they had for having salted fish was that you would take a piece of paper or a potsherd, which is also very porous and absorbent, and put it on top to absorb some of the oil or whatever it is being cooked in. So now if you wanted to get this to the right size, you would want to cut it into the right size, and that is not allowed. Our modern day analog of that is toilet paper, right? You want to cut it to the right size. So
Right.
that's the same thing. Even on Yom Tov, it's not permitted because that's not part of the regular Ochel Nefesh kind of setup. Okay. Ve'en gorfin tanur v'kiraim, and you may not scrape an oven or a stove. That's a stove that's got that's a wood-fired stove that we're talking about. Aval mechabshin. So why can't you scrape the things inside the oven? Um, so Kati says because if some of the plaster fell inside the oven, that's what we're talking about over here. That it's now it's unpleasant to have the plaster sitting in the middle over there. But en gorfin or samisham yom tov, and you can't scrape that out of there on Yom Tov because this is considered a tikkun kli apparently. I would never have thought that would be called a tikkun kli because like if bits of plaster fell in, that just seems like a bunch of that would just seem to be lots of um, uh, just dirt. I would have thought it's fine to sweep it out. Maybe the case is a little more complicated than that, but it seems that doesn't sort of match everything else that I know about what's considered a tikkun kli. So maybe the case is not exactly as clear. What does Artscroll explain on that particular point?
Let's see if I'm on the right line. Um, it said you may not cut paper to roast off on it salt fish, but would take out you may not take out a rake on oven or stove, but one may press down, and one may not place two barrels side by side to support them on the pot on them, and one may not support the pot with a chip of wood. This applies also to a door, and
So
one may not leave
what
an
is
animal.
I'm asking about the commentary about scraping the
I'm looking at
oven.
the wrong place. I'm looking at the wrong. I'm looking at. Okay. Is it about the cutting the paper or
No, the next one,
making
scraping the oven.
right. I mean, if plaster fell into it, and one may not rake it out on the other because it is repairing a utensil, but one may press down, level
Yeah,
it, and
yeah,
smooth the
that's
sides.
fine. But I want to hear what Oswald's commentary says. I don't want to hear just the translation. No. Does the commentary say anything about this case?
Um, Level down, smooth the ashes in the oven to be able to bake and cook on it. If it's impossible to cook in the oven without raking it out, one is permitted to do so.
But the
Is that
previous comment to that?
level down and smooth the ashes in the oven to be able to bake and cook on it. If
Previous
plaster, if the
about
plaster fell into it, one may not rake it out on Yom Tov because it's repairing a utensil, but you can press down on it,
yeah, but
level it
so
down,
the
and
so the
smooth the
comment so
edges.
the commentary doesn't say anything further about that raking it out.
No,
That is disappointing because that really needs tzarech iyun.
this is a Rambam. It comes to the Rambam, so
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So anyway, let's just carry on. So, but you can press it down, and if it's unusable without without getting rid of those plaster, then you can do it. So
Right.
it seems to be that that's a Durabanan because Rabbanan can't be matter something that would be Doraisa if you couldn't use it. So okay. ואין מקיפין שתי חביות לשפוס עליהן es hakadera. Okay. So you cannot take two barrels and put them together to make like a stove top that you could put a pot on top of because that's looking too much like Bonnet. You're building a stove over there. But in
Right.
something is a kadera babakas, and you cannot rest the kadera on the bakas, which is basically a tree stump. Um, and something is a kadera babakas. Why can you not put it on a tree stump?
No commentary about it.
Okay, and similarly a door. It says
Right. Do it right.
right. So the commentary says "Ein somchim esav b'kas b'yom tov," because why? Because you're using the wood for something that it was not intended for on Yom Tov. So it's meant to be uh, hasaka. So the wood is intended for firewood. It's not intended to be used as a platform, and therefore using for any other usage, it's considered muktzah.
We'd have to make a designation before.
Correct. Okay, v'ein manhigin esa behema b'makel b'yom tov. You also cannot lead an animal using a stick on Yom Tov. Why not? Because it looks like you're leading it to the market. Okay, and of course the market is closed on Shabbos, but whatever. Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Shimon Matir. Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon, says that this would be permissible. Okay. Rabbi Eliezer Omer. Now this is Rabbi Eliezer Agadol, the Ben Horkanas. Notel Adam kesam lachtos b'shinav. So this may be the Mishnah where the modern usage of the word kesam as a toothpick comes from, but a kesam in our Mishnah is referring to basically a chip of wood. It's not like literally a little toothpick like this where it's made small and thin to fit in between your teeth. We're talking about wood chips. That's a kesam. Okay, so Rabbi Eliezer says you can take wood chips that are lying around in your house from the wood that you've got in whatever your wood store is in your house, and you can use those to pick between your teeth. And you can also gather up wood from his courtyard. Uh, oh, so not just wood, but like wood chips we're talking about, specifically wood chips, and we'll see why we're talking about that now. You can gather them from your courtyard and burn them. Because Rabbi Eliezer holds that everything that is in your courtyard is considered mukhan and prepared. It's prepared for Shabbos, prepared for Yom Tov at least. The Chachamim disagree on both counts. They say megabev mishelafanav umadlik. Now, all that you can do is if you have wood chips inside your house, that then those things you can use for lighting because that they're not difficult to gather up from the one little place where you store wood in your house. Um, but they apparently they even disagree about being allowed to use them for toothpicks.
Yes.
Um, and they also disagree that things that are in the chatzar. Now, wood that's in your chatzar, if you had logs of wood, for sure that everyone would agree that's set aside. But the chips are little bits that have fallen off. Now, for you to go around your chatzar picking up all the little chips, that they held was a tircha yetera. There's too much effort involved in going around and gathering around all the chips. Okay.
The
Um,
commentary says that the sages disagree with Elazar on 2 points. A person may not even take a chip which is before him to clean his teeth, for wood may be used only for burning, and is muktzah for any other use. And B, even for burning, one may only gather up chips lying before him in his house, but not those lying in his courtyard.
right.
As gathering up chips in one's courtyard requires great effort, didn't have it in his mind beforehand, so they're muktzah. Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. Ein motziin is ha'ur. You may not make a new flame. Okay, so this is you can transfer a flame on Yom Tov, but you cannot create a new flame. lo min ha'etzim v'lo min ha'avanim v'lo min ha'afar v'lo min hamayim. So you cannot do it by rubbing sticks together, not by striking stones together, not by using hot
Tiles, tiles, right?
afar is dust, sand, hot sand, and
Okay.
and um, and not from by water. Now you could use water if you're clever and you put it into a kli in such a way that it focuses the light of the sun onto a pile of tinder. Uh, no getting around this. You are not allowed to make a new flame on Yom Tov. ואין מלבנים את הרעפים לצלוס בהן, and you're also not allowed um, to fire tiles in order to roast on them. Now, what we're talking about is that we're talking about tiles that have not yet been baked.
Right.
Okay, because that's now technically you. So even though you're sort of incidentally using them as a base to put your fire on, but if you're going to be baking them at the same time, that's not allowed. ועוד אמר רבי אליעזר, also Rabbi Eliezer says, עומד אדם על המוקצה ערב Shabbos בשביעיס. So a person can stand by by the muktzeh in this case is where you put out your fruit to dry.
Mhm.
And this is now we're talking about this. The reason why I'm talking about the Shemitah year, because this rule could apply in any year, but the thing about the Shemitah is that there's no Trumas and Masros, and typically you would have to take Trumas and Masros after you've finished drying your fruit. So you would this only really works in Shemitah here, as you'll see, as he's saying. He stands on the edge of the Muktzeh on Erev Shabbos and says, "Mikan ani ochel lemachar," and he says, "I'm designating this to eat tomorrow." And that way, it's when Shabbos comes in, it's now considered that it's food already. It's not stuff that's still being finished in the Muktzeh. Now, as I said, if it was not a Shemitah year, then you would still have to take Trumas and Masros, and the fruit would be aser in any case. Okay. Chachamim אומרים עד שירשום ויאמר מכאן ועד כאן, and the Chachamim say no, you can't just designate it by word. You actually have to say you have to and to say in general, just say for this over here, this section that I'm marking off over here, you actually have to make a mark on it and say this is the area that I'm marking off for food for tomorrow.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Aleph Tes.
Okay. Beit Shammai says one man had sent on Yom Tov except portions. But Beis Hillel says one may send cattle, game, fowl, whether alive or slaughtered. And one may send wines, oils, and fine flour, and pulse, but not grain. Reb Shimon permits the grain. One may send garments, whether sewn or not sewn, even if they contain kalayim, for they are the needs of the festival, but not a hobnailed sandal or unsewn shoe. But Beis Hillel says, whether a white shoe, nor because it needs a craftsman, and this is the rule: whatever is usable on Yom Tov may be sent. If Yom Tov falls on Shabbos, a person is not to cook from the outside of Yom Tov for the Sabbath, but he may cook on Yom Tov, and if there's any left over, he gets left over for the Sabbath. He prepares the dish before Yom Tov and relies it on the Sabbath. And Shammai says 2 dishes. Beis Hillel says 1 dish, and they agree that it's the fish with the eggplant count on if it's 2 dishes. If he ate it or it was lost, he may not cook another and it stayed. But if any of it remained, he relies on it for Shabbos.
Yeah.
If it
That's
occurs
it.
after
Yeah,
Sabbath,
that's it. I think
we ready?
I think that's 3. Let me just check my notes over here. Yeah, up to
Yes.
base Aleph. That's
Okay.
right. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Yom Hey Aleph.
Yeah. If they brought him the ladle and the shovel, and they scooped it up in his cupped hands and placed it into the ladle, a big Kohen according to his size, and a small Kohen according to his size, and this was the incense required measure. If he took the shovel in his right hand and the ladle in his left, he would walk through the temple until it reached the space between the 2 curtains, which separated the holy from the holy of holies, and between them was a cubit. Rabbi Yossi says that there was only 1 cubit, it says, and the curtains are divided for you between the holy and the holy of holies. The outer curtain was pinned up from the southern side, and the inner one from the northern side. He walked between them until he reached the northern side. When he reached the northern side, he turned his face southward, walking to his left alongside the curtain, and he reached the ark. Reaching the ark, he would put the shovel between the 2 poles. He heaped the incense on the burning coals, and the whole chamber filled with smoke. He left, walking backward in the manner of his entry, and he prayed a short prayer in the outer chamber, but he did not prolong his prayer so as not to frighten the Jews. After the ark was taken away, a stone was there from the times of the early prophets, and it was called Shishia. Its height was 3 fingers above the ground, and upon it he would place the shovel. Okay, there's one more, right?
Two more.
Right, I'm sorry. All right. He took the blood from it was long, so I thought he took
Hmm.
the blood from the one who was storing it. He entered the place that had previously entered, stood in the place he had stood, and sprinkled from it one time upward, 7 times downward, but he did not aim at sprinkling either above or below, rather one like a whips. And this is how it would count. One plus one, one plus two, one plus three, one plus four, one plus five, one plus six, one plus seven, and they exited and put the vessel on the golden stand, which was in the holy. They brought him the he goat, he slaughtered it, and received his blood
No,
in the
no,
base
no,
of the
that's it.
end.
That's it. That's it. Um,
Okay.
it's up to you now. Yeah.
All right. Oh,
Okay. Shabbos. Last Mishnah in Shabbos. And then Eruvin.
yes. Oh, I didn't take it over now. I'm sorry.
Okay. No
Okay.
worries. So we didn't mention it yesterday. We should have.
Yeah, okay. We may now fall vows on Shabbos, and we may not release for vows things that are necessary for Shabbos. We may stop up a window, may measure a patch or a mikvah. Incident occurred in the days of Reb Tzadok's father and the days of Rav Shul Batnis, that they stepped up the window with an earthenware jug, and he tied a cup with a rush to a certain ascertain whether a vat had an aperture of a handbreadth or not. And from their words, we learn that we stop up, measure, and tie on Shabbos. Okay, we got everything.
Shabbos. Okay.
And we didn't say we were going to rush yesterday because we had to get into
Yeah.
long. So, an alley which is that is higher than 20 cubits must be lowered. Rabbi Yehuda says he need not, and one which is wider than 10 cubits must be narrowed. However, if it has the form of a doorway, even if it's wider than 10 cubits, it need not be narrowed. The adjustment of an alley, Beis Shammai says a pole and a crossbeam. Beis Hillel says a pole or a crossbeam. Rav Elia says two poles. A disciple in the presence of Rabbi Akiva stated in the name of Rabbi Ismail ben Ismail. Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel did not differ concerning an alley which is narrower than 4 cubits, and it may be adjusted with a pole or a crossbeam. Concerning which they differ concerning one which is wider than 4 cubits and up to 10 cubits. Beis Shammai says a pole and a crossbeam, but Beis Hillel says a pole or a crossbeam. Said Rabbi Akiva, they differed in both cases.
Yeah.
Okay. Now on to
Yeah.
Payah. Okay. Payah, dollar. Okay. Payah, they do not reap with sickles and do not uproot it with spades, lest they strike one another. 3 times in the day, in the morning, in midnight, and the midnight time again, says they stated this is a minimum. Rabbi Akiva said they stated this is the maximum of Ben Nama would collect by the rope, and they give pay-ups for each furrow. If a non-Jew reaps his field and afterwards is converted, he is exempt from leket, from shikagah, and from payah. Rabbi Yehuda obligates regarding shikagah, for shikagah is only at the time of the imur. Okay, that was it.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And Kinam. Okay, base. How is this? If there were two women, one having 2 pairs of obligatory bird offerings, and this one having 2 pairs of such offerings, and a bird flew from this one to that one, it renders one bird offering unfit when it leaves. If it returns to the original group, it invalidates one bird offering when it returns. If one flew again at the time from the first group into the second, and then returned again from the second to the first, then again it flew from the first into the second, and then it returned again from the second group into the first, nothing more is lost, because even if they are all commingled, no less than 2 pairs will be fit to offer. If this woman has a pair of bird offerings, and this one has 2 pairs, this one has 3, and this one has 4, this one has 5, and this one has 6, this one has 7, and one bird flew from the first to the second, then one flew from the second to the third, then flew from the third to the fourth, then one flew from the fourth to the fifth, then one flew from the fifth to the sixth, then one flew from the sixth to the seventh, then one bird returned down to the series of groups, and invalidates one bird in the group. It flies to one in the group, it flew from one as it goes up through the series of groups, and one as it returns back to the beginning of the series. The first and the second groups do not have any valid bird offerings. The third group has one valid pair of bird offerings. The fourth group has 2 valid pairs. The fifth group, 3. The sixth group has 4. And the seventh group has 6 valid pairs of bird offerings. If one bird again flew in succession from each group into the next, and then one bird again returned in succession from each group into the next, each bird which flies between the groups invalidates one bird in the group. It flies in the group it flies to, and to one in the group it flew from. as it goes up through the series of groups and it returns back to the beginning of the series. The third and the fourth groups do not have any valid bird offerings. The fifth group has one valid pair. The sixth group has two valid pairs, and the seventh group has five valid pairs of bird offerings. If again one bird flew in succession from each group to the next, and then again one bird returned in succession from each group to the next, and each bird that flies between the groups and validates one bird in the group, it flies to one in the group, it flew from as it grows up through the series of groups, and one as it returns back to the beginning of the series. The fifth and the sixth beginning of the series, the fifth and the sixth groups do not have any valid bird offerings. The seventh group has four valid bird offerings, and there are those who say that the seventh group did not lose anything more than the result of those additional flights back and forth. And if a bird flew from those bird offerings which must be left to die in any of these groups, then all of these groups of bird offerings must be left to die. If there was an undesignated pair of obligatory bird offerings and a pre-designated pair of bird offerings, and a bird flew from the undesignated to the designated pair, then he shall take a pair mate for the second bird of the designated pair. And if the bird returned, if a bird flew initially from the designated pair into the undesignated pair, then they must all be left to die.
Okay.
Okay.
And finally,
I don't think I don't
yeah,
think birds would have I don't think birds would have enough DOS to be able to figure that out.
yeah, I mean the whole of Kinim is basically mathematical conjecture. It's just playing with what would
Numbers,
happen
right?
if. Um,
Funny. Okay. Okay, we have Yud. If one leaves a bird from another for one sepentary for its 700 zoos, then Shemitah year is counted. If it leased it from him for 7 years for 700 zoos, the Shemitah year is not counted. One who hired for the day collects its wages all night. One who's hired for the night collects all day, and one who's hired for several hours collects all night and all day. One who is hired for a week, a month, or a year, or a sepentary, if he departs by day, he collects all that day. If he departs by night, he collects all that night and the following day. Whether it be the hire of a man, the hire of a beast, the hire of utensils, the law on this day shall be you give his wages. It applies as well as the law, the wage of a hired worker should not stay over with you until morning. When he claimed it, but he did not claim it, he does not transgress it. If he gave him a draft on a storekeeper, on our money changer, he does not transgress it. If a hired worker claims his wage when it is due, he may swear and take it. If it's time he passed, he may not swear and take it. And if the witness that demanded it of him, he may swear and take it. As for a resident alien, the law on this day you shall give his wages applies to him, but the law, the wage of a hired worker, shall not stay with him over until morning. This does not apply to him. Okay.
we're done. Okay.
Have a great day.
You
Enjoy
too. Have a
beautiful
wonderful
weather.
day.
Thank
And
you.
see you.
Bye. Be well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.